are recorded so that you can refer to them at a future time or share them with other individuals. And I want to introduce our speaker today. Sara Berhow is in public relations with Minnesota State Parks and Trails, and she is here today to share a lot of information with us about winter recreation, about the Free Park Day, and a variety of resources that we have within Minnesota State Parks. So thank you for joining us today. I'm going to turn things over to Sara.
Great. Thanks everyone for joining today. I'm going to share some slides that we have prepared here. So today I'm going to share some information about getting the most out of Free Park Day. So here's a rundown on the things that we'll talk about today. We'll talk about when Free Park Days happen, why the DNR does Free Park Days, how to find out where you might want to visit on Free Park Day, things that you should do in preparation for your park visit, what to do when you get there, why we think that fall and winter are great times to come out and visit state parks, and then we'll share some ways that you can talk about and share your experience after you've been to your park visit. And then because we know you're just going to love it, we have some information to help plan your next trip to a state park when it isn't Free Park Day. So we have 4 Free Park Days every year. There's one for each season. They typically happen in February, April, June, and November. So our next Free Park Day is just 2 days away. It's on Friday, November 25th. And we have a Free Park Day webpage. That's at mndnr.gov/freeparkday. So you can learn about future dates, and there are some more resources for you at that page. And what Free Park Day means is that you don't need to have a vehicle permit to get into a park on Free Park Day. What it does not include is some of the additional activities that have fees associated with them. Things like camping or renting skis or a canoe or kayak. Those rentals or some of the tours that have fees are not included. You would need to pay for those in addition. So why do we do Free Park Days? First and foremost is that it is good for us to be outside. There's a large body of research that shows there are a lot of health and wellness benefits to spending time outside and being out in nature. It's good for our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health. And we know that that is the case no matter what types of activities you choose to do outside, whether you're doing something more rigorous like a long bike ride or going cross-country skiing, or you are doing something less rigorous like birding or having a family picnic or nature photography. There are benefits to all of those things, and it's great for us to be outdoors. We also hope that Free Park Day will bring some new visitors to parks who haven't been to them before. And we hope that people who've maybe been to a state park but haven't come out for a while will come back. And then lastly, we just want to show off all of the great natural resources and beautiful places that we have across Minnesota and share those with our residents. So we'll talk a little bit about how to find a park to visit on Free Park Day. We have 66 state parks and 9 state recreation areas. You can find them online if you go to mndnr.gov/stateparks. And I'll make a note about this map that you're seeing right now. We have an online version of this map. If you go to the link that is listed, and in the left-hand column, you'll see Find a State Park. And then you'll want to click where it says By Map, and you'll see an online version of this map. And where you see all of the state park names, you can just click on that state park name to go to that park's website and learn more about that location. Most people in Minnesota live pretty close to a state park within 30 miles. As you're choosing where you might like to go, if you like to be around other people and you find comfort in being outdoors where you're not quite so isolated, I'll let you know that parks in the metro area here are usually pretty busy, as well as these parks up on the North Shore along Lake Superior. Those parks are very popular and often quite busy. If peace and quiet is more of what you're looking for, we've got some suggestions here, some of the hidden gems that we like to direct people to. Carly, Hayes Lake, Kylan Woods, Glacial Lakes, Franz Jevny, John Latch, Lake Bemidji, or Schoolcraft State Parks are some great choices where there's a lot of fun things to do and they're not so busy. One more tool that can be really helpful in finding the perfect park for you to visit is the Park Finder. Again, from this Find a State Park page, where you may have clicked on By Map to find that map, you can click on Park Finder, and then you can use this box to make selections. And there are a lot of different categories here that you can search by. Things to see, campsite types, trail types, recreation facilities, what type of bathroom facilities are available. There's lots of different categories here. So if you're looking for something special in a park, such as a park with a waterfall, you can search for that and get a list, either a list or a map of the parks that offer what you're looking for. This can be especially helpful if you have someone in your group who needs accessible facilities. You can search by accessible campsites, accessible lodging, accessible bathroom facilities. That could be a really good tool for people looking for those types of information. After you choose where you'd like to go for your park visit, we've got some tips here on things you should know before you go. Like we talked about a few slides back with that state park map, each state park and recreation area has its own website, and we suggest that you check it before you go. On the main page of each park's website, you will see a yellow box with visitor alerts. This is a great place to find out about any information that would be helpful for you to know. And, in this case, you can see this example is from Afton State Park. They have a special deer management hunt coming up in December, so they've let people know that that is going to be happening and have offered some other options of nearby places to visit on those dates that the park will have hunting. But you can also see here that they're telling us some things like there are trails that have some icy patches, that the ski trails aren't ready quite yet, and they're telling us when the park office is going to be open. So those are all helpful things to know before you head out to the park. Another great tool is the Avenza Maps app. This is something that uses what's called a GeoPDF map. And after you've downloaded the app and your map, you can use this to navigate in a park, and you don't need to have internet or cell service. You can use this off the grid. We do suggest that you download the app and the map for the place that you want to visit before you head to the park. And the reason for that is that in some of our parks, there is little or no cell phone service. So there is not a guarantee that you'll be able to download your map once you get to the park. So this is a good thing to do at home before you head out. Here's a little bit more information about that Avenza Maps app. It is free to download, and it works no matter what operating system you have on your smartphone. And again, like I said, it uses what's called a GeoPDF map, and your phone doesn't have a reader or a viewer for those on it by default. So you'll need to download an app to be able to use that. Once you have the app, you'll go to the map store, and all of our DNR maps are free, and you can just search for MNDNR or just search for the name of the park that you're planning to go to, and you can download that map. And then once you get to the park, you are ready to go. Just like you see with a lot of the physical maps in parks, you'll see a dot that says you are here. These GeoPDF maps have the same thing. There is a blue dot that shows you where you are in the park, and that blue dot follows you as you move. So it really helps you navigate the park. And you can also do some additional things with GeoPDF maps. You can measure how far you've gone. You can add photos. There are some other cool things that you could do that once you have it downloaded. So what to pack for your trip? You'll want to bring your phone. A quick note about your mobile phone and colder temperatures. The batteries for your mobile devices do drain faster in colder temperatures, so you might want to keep your phone in a pocket that's maybe close to your body so it stays warm and it preserves your battery life. Make sure that you have clothing and footwear that is appropriate for the weather and anything you plan to do while you're out and about. For gear, if you have winter gear to go for a walk in your neighborhood or to wait for a while outside at a bus stop, you have what you need. You don't necessarily need a really highly technical gear. We suggest that you dress in layers so that if the temperature changes while you're out, or you warm up as you're busy hiking or skiing, that you can adjust as needed. Make sure that your ears and your hands and your face are covered. One last note here is that it's important to choose clothing and boots that are not too tight. They can restrict circulation and make you more at risk for frostbite. So choose clothing and boots that fit comfortably. It's a good idea to bring some food and water with you. And because we have fewer hours of daylight at this time of the year, it's a good idea to bring a flashlight or a headlamp in case you end up being out as you're losing daylight. And my last note here is that if you're bringing your dog, make sure you have a leash. Dogs are welcome in state parks. They are not allowed in buildings, however. So don't bring your dog inside of the park office. And just make sure that your dog is leashed and attended, and please pick up after your dogs. So when you get to the park, the first building that you're going to see is what we call a park office. Because it is free park day on Friday, you can drive right past the park office if you're just ready to get your adventure started. However, if you'd like to stop, you can pick up a printed map. There are usually some informational kiosks that have information about what you can do at that park. And if the park office is staffed at that time, you can stop in and ask some questions or shop at the nature store. While you're out having your adventure at the park, we have a few requests that can help us make sure that our state parks are protected and preserved for generations to come. The first is to stay on trails. Make sure that whatever you pack in, you pack it back out. Clean up your trash. It might sound overly dramatic, but litter can be deadly to wildlife, especially some of those little critters. So make sure that you clean up after yourself. Take all the photos you want, but don't take other things. We don't want people picking plants or taking firewood or any other things. Leave other things in the park as you found them. And then the last piece here is to respect wildlife and watch them from a distance. When we are spending time out in state parks, we are visiting their home and should make sure that they are safe and comfortable. Here's just a few suggestions of things to do at state parks in November. This is certainly not an exhaustive list, but we'll start you off with some ideas. You can go for a hike. You can go fishing in state parks. And at many state parks, you can even go fishing without a fishing license. There's more information about that at mndnr.gov/fishmn. You can take a bike ride, or some of our parks have mountain biking trails. You can bring some binoculars with you and go birding. We do have some campgrounds, cabins, and guest houses that are open at this time of the year. You can have fun having a picnic by a campfire. Our picnic areas have campfire rings, so it's a great idea to sit down and have some hot chocolate and maybe make a s'more while you warm up. And then we have naturalist programs, and there's an online events calendar where you can find out what's happening on the day you plan to visit a park. Sometimes people wonder why we have a free park day in November and another one in February. And we do free park days in all seasons because we really believe that Minnesota is beautiful all year long. There are some advantages to being outside in fall and winter. For me, the most important one on this list is that there are no mosquitoes. You don't have to deal with bugs when you visit state parks at this time of the year. Of course, the temperatures are cooler. Parks are less busy, which is especially a big draw to those solitude seekers. And you have a good chance of seeing some wildlife. You can more easily see birds and other little critters when there aren't so many leaves on trees or leaves on other plants in the understory. It's a good chance to see some wildlife. After your state park visit, we hope that you have a great time and that you tell your friends and family and maybe bring them with you on your next visit. We also have on our website a photo sharing page. If you go to the DNR website, you can just use this search bar here. And if you search share photos, you can get to this page. You can upload some photos. And we use photos that get uploaded by park visitors on social media and some other things, so we may feature your photo. You can also share your photos on your own social media accounts. Use the hashtag JustAddNature or MN State Parks. Next time you go to a state park, when it may not be free park day, a day permit is $7 and an annual permit is $35. A couple of notes about some discounts that may apply. There are annual permit discounts for Minnesota residents who have a disability hang tag or license plate. We also have discounts for active military personnel and disabled veterans. And for daily permits, we have group rates. If there are 10 or more vehicles in your group, you can get day permits for $5 instead of $7. You can get more information about all of those discounts or purchase your permit online. There's a website listed here, mndnr.gov/permits. You can also purchase a permit at a park. One thing to remember here is that these permits are for your vehicle. It's not a per person entry fee. So it doesn't matter if you have one person in your car or 6 people, it's the same price. So if you're going to go to state park, fill your car with friends and family. And because we're trying to work on removing barriers for people to visit state parks, the DNR has partnered with a number of libraries across the state. We have more than 100 libraries where you can check out a state park permit for free. Those are 7-day permits, so they can be checked out and used within the week. It can be used if you are going to be staying overnight as well. You would need to pay for camping fees in addition to that permit. You can go online to mndnr.gov/library pass to see if your local library is participating in that program. So if you'd like to come back in winter, here's some suggestions to do in state parks during the winter. We have a number of parks that host first day hikes on New Year's Day. But head out to any park. It's a great way to start off the new year by spending some time outside. A lot of our parks have snowshoe rentals, and there are also a few parks that have cross-country ski rentals. You can try fat tire biking. You can go sledding. You can go to a candlelight hike or a ski event. These are really fun for people of all ages. The candlelight hike events are usually a pretty manageable length of trail and not too hilly, so they're great for people of all ages and abilities. My family really loves these, and I would highly suggest you try this winter. And we do have an online winter guide that can provide you with some more ideas. That's at mndnr.gov/winter guide. And the last thing to put a plug in for if you have a great time when you visit a state park is that we have some clubs that you can join. The hiking club and the passport club will take you to all 75 state park and recreation areas. And so it's a great way to discover some new places that you may not have been to before. And you can also earn rewards. We have fun things like patches and even some free camping certificates. So you can learn about those clubs online at mndnr.gov/clubs. And that wraps up my portion of the presentation. I've listed my email address. If you have any questions about visiting a state park, feel free to reach out to me. And we can move on to questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all those incredible resources that we have available to help make visits to the state parks a lot more enjoyable. For anyone that is watching, we do have some time now to be able to answer some questions. Sara has a wealth of knowledge on all the state parks in the state of Minnesota. So if you do have any questions, please add them to the Q&A, and we'd be happy to spend some time answering those. I particularly like, Sara, how you mentioned a little bit about some of the less busy parks. And I want to put in a personal plug for Glacial Lake State Park. It's probably one of my most favorite underrated places in the state of Minnesota. So thank you for sharing those resources.
Sure, there are so many different kinds of places to visit across our state, from prairies to the North Shore to pine forests and old growth pine forests. There's really a lot to see in different places. So some of those clubs that I talked about are a great way. That's a good motivation to visit all of the different places we have in our state. And I agree, Glacial Lakes is a great choice.
Excellent. So I do see some questions coming in here. Let me get started. Amy is asking, when you own an annual pass, do you need to stop into the visitor center at each visit, or can you just proceed directly in?
If you have an annual permit, you can just proceed directly in. You could also do that if you have a daily permit, but you purchased it online before you get to the park. What you'll get when you purchase a daily permit online is you'll get a printable permit that you can print out at home and then put it in your car. So if you've purchased your daily pass in advance, you don't need to stop at the park office either.
Lewis is wondering, how do we know if there are rentals available in the park? And I think this is a great question because a lot of those rentals, if you want to try snowshoeing, if you want to try other activities before you go out and buy all the equipment, it's, a really good opportunity to just try it for a day and see what it's like. So what is the best way to find out about rentals in certain parks?
The tool that I use is that Park Finder tool that we talked about. One of the categories that you can search by in that drop-down menu, you can choose rentals, and there will be different categories there. So you can choose to search for, say, parks that have kayak rentals or cross-country ski rentals. Whatever type of equipment you're looking for, you can find it on that Park Finder page. I will also note when it comes to rentals, in some cases, the park itself rents the equipment, and there are a few parks where we have a concessionaire that runs rentals. So again, it is a good idea to look at that parks. If you use the Park Finder page and it says the type of rental you're looking for is available at a certain park, go to that park's website and get some more information. I have just been talking with a few folks across the state where cross-country ski rentals happen. And because the biggest demand for those is on weekends, sometimes they don't have rentals available during the week, for example. So it's a good idea to check the park website.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake is wondering about seasonal. Well, I think Jake's referring to the annual pass and is wondering, and this is a good point of clarification for people who are new to the parks or to the passes. Does it run just from January to December, or is it annual based on when you purchase the pass?
It is based on when you purchase the pass. It is not tied to the calendar year. So if you went to purchase a permit, an annual permit today, your permit would be valid through the end of November in 2023. It'll be valid through the end of the month, 12 months later. Amber, I'm not hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Uh, I was just saying I was just saying that if those annual passes can be really great for gifts, if you have a family member that you're looking for a gift, you want them to spend some time outside in Minnesota in the next year, it can be a great stocking stuffer, something to buy for a family member. Can you talk because the passes are connected to certain vehicles? Can you talk a little bit more about how that gifting works?
Sure. So there are two options here. You could either purchase a permit that you would, then you would get mailed a physical permit that you could wrap or do whatever you would like to do for the gift recipient. Another thing we recommend sometimes is that giving a state park gift card works well too, because that gift card can be redeemed for a permit. And then say if you purchase a permit in December to gift to someone, then that permit is going to be good through December of 2023. But if the person you're giving it to, maybe they're not going to make their first visit until March, for example. If you give them a gift card instead, they can purchase that annual permit in March, and it would be good for 12 months starting in March then instead of December. So there is a little bit of advantage to purchasing a gift card that the recipient can use to purchase a permit instead of purchasing the permit itself. But that's just one tip that we give people to make sure that you can get the most out of the permit.
That's a great tip. We also have a couple of interesting questions about volunteering in the state parks. Donna's just wondering about volunteering opportunities and how to find out more. And Jan is actually wondering in particular about how to pursue a path towards being a park host.
So a good place to start for that, we have a volunteering webpage within the DNR website. I believe that it's at mndnr.gov/volunteering. I think if you do /volunteer, that takes you to the Minnesota Conservation Volunteer Magazine. So I think it's volunteering is the URL for volunteer opportunities. And being a campground host is one of those. And that is linked to that webpage as well as other volunteer opportunities within the DNR and specifically for Parks and Trails.
We also have a little bit of a shout out about a great point on the cell phone battery, especially in the wintertime, and a note that it can also be an issue for key fob batteries. So all those things to think
Ah,
about as you're getting ready to head out for the winter season.
good point. Yes, I learned that the hard way once, that cold weather will drain your battery pretty fast.
Yeah, it's all part of living in this great state, right? Dan is making a great observation in that he often sees people wandering into the woods off trail. It's especially at certain state parks, probably the busier state parks. Is that discouraged or not permitted at all? Can you talk a little bit more about the stewardship when you're in those state park areas?
We prefer if people stay on the trails. Um, in part because you may have seen in some state parks there's some conservation work being done. There may be small tree seedlings that have been planted. um, Sometimes there are protected species of wildflowers. um, Sometimes there are plants that um, you know cause physical irritation that you may want to watch out for so you don't get poison ivy, or there are some other plants that you may want to stay away from and not have contact with. So staying on the trail just means that you'll be safe, and that you're not going to be trampling something that we'd like to preserve.
Excellent, excellent ideas, all of those to be able to keep yourself safe and keep the state parks in good condition for everyone that wants to be able to use them. Donna is also wondering, and this is probably one of those activity searches that you can do on the website. Do you know of any parks that have archery ranges?
Yes, there are a number of them. And when I mentioned earlier naturalist programs, a number of state parks do some archery learning programs. And so you can search the events calendar. They're often called Archery in the Parks. In some cases, there isn't an archery range that's set up permanently, but there are ones set up for that particular event. So again, that Park Finder page would be a good spot to find places that offer that.
I just saw that Dan jumped in also in regards to going off trail, especially during many parts of the year in Minnesota. If you stay on the trail, you're gonna stay away from those wood ticks and deer ticks, which is a great tip as well.
Yes, they're still out there and there's still risk, but less risk if you're staying on the trail.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff is wondering if you have any suggestions for parks in Minnesota where it might be easy or good to see bison up close.
Sure. We have bison ranges at two state parks, at Minneopa State Park, which is just south of Mankato, and then at Blue Mounds State Park in the southwest corner of the state. So at Minneopa State Park, there is what's called the Bison Drive, where you can drive your own vehicle through the bison range. Um, that is not available at Blue Mounds. However, they do prairie and bison tours at Blue Mounds, where you can get a naturalist-led tour through the bison range in what we affectionately call the bison buggy. And That is handicap accessible, by the way, so it's available to everyone. And those tours run April through October. So those are two state parks where you can see parts of the Minnesota conservation herd. Um, and it's not a state park, but I'll give a little plug just because I want people to get out to parks, whether they're state parks or other parks. Um, Spring Lake Park Reserve, which is part of the Dakota County Park System, recently introduced a herd um, that is located between Rosemount and Hastings, not too far from the Twin Cities. The bison aren't quite ready for public viewing there yet, but come spring, you could also see bison there. They're part of the same conservation herd that we have at Minneopa and Blue Mountain State Parks.
That's great. I learned something totally new myself. I didn't know that they were being introduced that close into the metro area. That's great. Um, Christy is wondering if the website indicates where there might be plowed trails, if that in terms of accessibility throughout the parks, is there a way to search specifically for parks with trails that are plowed?
I don't think it's actually called that within the Park Finder. A general rule or something to look for there is that you can search by trail type and you can search by paved trails. And paved trails will be plowed in the winter. Other types of, dirt trails and other a little bit more rugged surfaces are not plowed in the winter. Um, there are parks that have groomed cross-country ski trails. And if you haven't done a lot of winter hiking or snowshoeing, I'll give a little tip that we really don't want people hiking on those groomed ski trails. It messes it up for the folks who are trying to use their skis there. So um, don't hike on the groomed trails. Make sure that they're preserved for the skiers.
Yeah, and if you do anticipate, doing a lot of walking around, in the winter months, and I know personally, just even walking around the metro and getting to the bus station, I use a lot of those traction devices on the bottom of my shoes in the winter time. A lot of those things that you use just for everyday life in Minnesota, you can translate and take out into the parks.
Yes, I do think when it comes to traction devices, because you never know what you might encounter on the trail in the winter, I bring those in a pack always in the winter. You can find them, you can purchase them online, you can purchase them at sporting goods stores. There are lots of places to buy those and lots of different varieties of them, so you can find what works well for you. Um, but it's kind of smart to just always have those with you in the winter.
One of our audience members, Sam, also indicated that for bison in the summer, that Bellwyn Nature Conservancy, just east of the metro, might also be a resource for that too. So we thank Sam for sharing that additional information with us. Lots of opportunities to see that particular species. Uh, I see one last question, and it's a great thing to try and do in the winter time, and something that I think a lot of people in our state are always seeking out. Any suggestions on the best parks to be able to see the aurora borealis?
Oh, those, um, I've seen some really beautiful pictures from the North Shore, specifically Grand Portage. Now, if you live in most of the state, that might be a long drive because Grand Portage State Park is in the far northeastern corner of the state near the Canadian border. And so it might be a hike or a long drive for you to get there, but um, we have a park manager there who's a really talented photographer, and I've seen some really beautiful images from there. There are a number of websites if you just kind of do a Google search for, um, predictions about northern lights, um, that will tell you what areas you may see them in and at what times. And then you can find a park that correlates with that. There are a lot of places in northern Minnesota. I've seen some pretty pictures from Itasca, from Scenic State Park. They're um, viewable from a lot of places in northern Minnesota.
And that might be a good opportunity to think about potentially, the kind of camping opportunities that are available in the parks in the wintertime. As you know, most of the time when you're looking for the northern lights, you're looking for them in those really early morning hours where you would need to be set up in the park in a tent kind of situation or an RV.
Yes, as long as you mentioned winter camping, Amber, I will say that I can't remember if it was last winter or maybe the previous winter. There was a webinar in this series about winter camping. So if folks are interested in trying winter camping and are looking for some guidance, you can look at the archives for these webinars, and there's a great one on winter camping.
Yeah, it's an interesting opportunity to pursue and think about, especially as you need and want to get out of the house in these colder months. So I am not seeing any additional questions. Sarah, I did want to just ask. I want to thank you so much for sharing all of the planning resources and all of the things that are on the websites. I know that we have the events calendar to be able to list different opportunities. Are there any other social media groups or different types of Facebook groups or things that individuals can join to kind of keep up to date on things that are going on in the parks?
Sure. Well, we at the DNR don't manage any groups. We do have three social media channels for Parks and Trails. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So join us there and you can learn about what's happening. There are also lots of other online groups that are not affiliated with the DNR where there are people who discuss, there are groups for hiking and backpacking. There are groups for camping in Minnesota. Hiking, there are some specific groups for certain demographics of people who like to do those things, whether it's, by gender or cultural identity. There are a number of different groups where you can find people like you who are interested in getting involved in outdoor recreation. And there's a lot of really good conversations in those groups. I'm in quite a number of them myself. And they're always really good suggestions. So if you have questions, if you ask a question in one of those groups, you will get a lot of great answers from a lot of really experienced people. So you can just search by some keywords. There's a lot of Facebook groups that you could join to get some tips and tricks.
Well, we certainly hope that this has gotten everyone excited to get out into the parks. We hope that you enjoy the long holiday weekend coming up, and definitely encourage you to be able to utilize Free Park Day as a resource to be able to get out on Friday and walk off some of those massive amounts of food that that you were able hopefully to consume on Thursday. I want to thank you so much today, Sarah, for joining us and sharing all this information about this tremendous resource in the state of Minnesota. Next week, if you're going to be joining us on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about northern pike fishing. We have Bethany Becky, or Bethany Bethke. I'm sorry, I might be saying her name wrong there. She is a fisheries research scientist, and she's going to be talking a little bit about northern pike populations and being able to do some ice fishing for that particular species of fish. So we hope that you'll join us for that session. We did also want to let everyone know that our new winter series of this MOS, the Minnesota Outdoor Skills and Stewardship Series, is now on our website. And so you can register for a variety of topics that we're going to be talking about, being able to get outdoors and learn more about the natural resources in Minnesota throughout the winter months. So get online and get registered for those sessions. Thank you once again, Sarah. I hope that you yourself have a great day out in the parks.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.